Hello kids, Mr. Agee here, and for reading today, Thursday, March 25th, we're going to read one more installment from the book What Would She Do? 25 True Stories of Trailblazing Rebel Women. Today we're going to focus on a person who is very famous. She is very well known for her love of animals, specifically chimpanzees. Her name is Dr. Jane Goodall, Champion of Chimps. Jane Goodall is a primatologist, which means that she knows her chimps. She spent over half a century patiently observing how they live and behave and interact with one another. But she isn't just the world expert on chimpanzees. She works hard to protect them too. And even though she's now over 80, she still promotes the conservation of animals and the environment. Her name, Valerie Jane Morris Goodall. She was born April 3rd, 1934. Her nationality is British. Her profession is chimpanzee expert and conservationist. Jane Goodall's love of animals can be traced back to a toy chimpanzee called Jubilee that she was given on her first birthday. It was specially produced to celebrate the birth of the first chimp at the London Zoo in 1935. She adored the toy chimp and still has it, but no one could have guessed how hard she'd work and how far she'd go to look after the real thing. When she was young, Jane was fascinated by animal behavior. Determined to watch an egg actually being laid. She once hid in a chicken coop for 5 hours to see it happen. Meanwhile, her family called the police because they thought she was missing. But although there were plenty of chickens in the south of England where Jane grew up, exotic animals were in short supply, so she dreamed of faraway places instead, like Africa. Jane worked as a secretary and as a waitress to save the money to go, and her chance came in 1957 when a school friend invited her to Kenya. In Nairobi, Jane met Louis Leakey, a Kenyan who was studying the origins of human life in Africa. He gave Jane a job as a chimpanzee researcher, and she worked at the Gombe Reserve in Tanzania. There, she witnessed a chimpanzee make a spoon from a twig before dipping it into a termite nest to scoop up insects. It was a huge discovery. At that time, it was thought that humans, and only humans, used and made tools. Yet I had just watched a chimp toolmaker in action, she said years later. It would change the way people looked at chimps and humans. Sometimes Jane's research methods were criticized. She gave chimps names rather than numbers, which some said made her view the animals less objectively. But after her 55-year study of chimpanzees in Tanzania, it's hard to argue with the fact that she discovered many new and amazing things about chimp behavior, enough to make her the undisputed world expert. In 1977, she created the Jane Goodall Institute, which aims to encourage people to work together to save the natural world we all share. The Institute says that Dr. Jane Goodall went into the forest to study the remarkable lives of chimpanzees, and she came out of the forest to save them. In 1991, Jane founded Roots and Shoots, a youth-led community action program. Its mission? To make the world a better place. Roots and Shoots began with just 12 students in Tanzania and has now grown to more than 150,000 members in 130 countries. The astonishing Jane Goodall has been showered with awards including the Kyoto Prize, the Benjamin Franklin Medal in Life Science, the Rainforest Alliance Champion Award, and the Primate Society of Great Britain Conservation Award. In 2002, she was named as a United Nations Messenger of Peace, and the following year she became Dame Jane Goodall. What a star! What might Jane do? You really, really, really want a pet. Cat, dog, rabbit, hamster, gerbil, or fish. You're not picky. You quite like the sound of a bearded dragon, actually. But your parents say no. What might Jane Goodall do? This is a tricky one. Some parents just don't like the idea of a pet, or they could be worried that you'll get bored and they'll end up looking after it. We don't know for sure what Jane Goodall would say, but she might suggest you volunteer at an animal sanctuary or a rescue center for now. Then you can find out what it's really like to care for an animal for whenever you do own a pet. Here's a quote from Jane Goodall. My mother always taught us that if people don't agree with you, the important thing is to listen to them. But if you've listened to them carefully and you still think that you're right, then you must have the courage of your convictions. Jane Goodall. Hope you enjoyed this installment of What Would She Do? 25 True Stories of Trailblazing Rebel Women.